Hey guys, a few years ago, my brother came to me looking for my help to help him get a vehicle. And of course I went with a Toyota because, well, although I love my brother very much, he is not great with maintenance, but he killed that one. And so now I needed to find him something even more unkillable than a Toyota. And I think I have the solution here for you. And it's an American car, the Mercury Grand Marquis. So this is the third generation Mercury Grand Marquis, which debuted in 1998 and was made all the way until 2002. And this is based on the Panther platform, which many of you will know, the Ford Crown Victoria, as well as the Lincoln Town Car. And a lot of people seeing this thing going down the road may mistake it for a cop car, may mistake it for a taxi cab, because those Panther platforms were known to be livery vehicles. And believe it or not, the Mercury Grand Marquis actually outsold the Crown Vic every year that it was in production in the third generation, even though they had all of those fleet sales. Now, hiding under the hood of all of these Panther platform vehicles is Ford's notorious 4.6 liter V8, and this particular one is pumping out about 220 horsepower. And yeah, I know it's a V8 with only 220 horsepower, but that is part of why these are so reliable, because this engine is super understressed. They just don't have a lot of power going on. They are just meant to kind of waft you down the road and have torque whenever you need it. But yeah, the vast majority of these just keep going and going and going with very little issue. I've seen some of these taxi cabs out there with over 500,000 miles on them, still on the original engine, and that is a true testament to just how reliable these things are. All right, so hopping into the Grand Marquis, you know, these seats are actually pretty nice. I have sat in the Lincoln Town Car of this, and I will say I do think that the Lincoln Town Car is more comfortable, quite honestly. But this one's still pretty nice. It rides pretty soft, especially with the fact that this is that luxury version, so it gives you the air ride suspension in the back. It does kind of make it, you know, just a little bit softer and little closer to the town car experience than your standard Mercury Grand Marquis. But that is just kind of the point of this car, really. It's like, it just gives you this soft, cushy, now I'm going over a speed bump, so yeah, that's suspension works as it should, but it gives you this soft, cushy experience. You do have a little bit of a torquey V8 because you're talking about almost 250 pound-feet of torque coming out of this thing. And yeah, it's good at being a car, you know? It's just good at getting you down the road, getting you where you need to be, and then if you need a little bit of extra oomph, you have it. You know, you can hear that V8 come to life a little bit there, and it's not fast, you know. That's, again, not what these were really meant to be. And if you have the Ford version of it, they're not quite as soft, but they still do ride pretty good. You know, they're just a little more bare bones. They don't have as many creature comforts as the Mercuries do. So in this massive vehicle, one of the nice features that I like about it is the fact that you get a little keypad here. So if you're at the beach and you don't want to bring your keys with you, or you're going out for a hike and you don't want to bring the keys with you, you can leave them on the inside of the car, and as long as you know the code to this, you can get back in your vehicle. And these things were actually body on frame. Yes, this was a sedan that was body on frame, and that really does make these a robust platform. Now, a lot of modern vehicles come with a power opening rear hatch or a power opening trunk, and this back in 2002 wasn't necessarily power opening, but it did open on its own without any effort from you. And then that shows just how big and massive this trunk is as well. You could fit a few people in here, whether they're alive or not is up to you, I guess. But you do also get the easy way to escape. Now, this one being the LS trimmed Grand Marquis, it has the rear air suspension, and you have this little off button here. So if you are jacking this thing up, keep in mind you want to turn that air suspension off unless you want to break it. Now, hopping into the back seat of the Grand Marquis, and you will see that even though this is a big car, it's actually not that spacious. I mean, I'm only 5'9", and my knees are right up against of the front seat in the position that I would sit it in. And you don't really have a lot of features back here. You do get an armrest with 2 cup holders, and yeah, the seats are fairly comfortable. I do have some lights up here that I can swivel to wherever I want them to be, but overall, it's just okay, honestly. If you want a big back seat, I'd go with the Lincoln. Now, sitting in the front seat, this really is the place that you want to be in these Grand Marquis because it is actually quite comfortable. Now, starting off on the left, you do have this auto lamp, which I believe adjusts the lightness or darkness outside, at which point your automatic headlights turn on. Maybe you can let me know in the comments section below if I'm correct or not, but this one, being the luxury version of the Grand Marquis, does get adjustable foot pedals, and this cool little button here on the left is actually your traction control button. So I think it's kind of interesting that they decided to go with that logo versus your typical traction control, but I actually kind of like it, to be honest with you. It makes more sense than more modern traction control logos. Then moving on to the steering wheel, you do have your standard stuff like cruise control, volume, but the thing that stands out to me about these is the fact that you have your temperature and fan speed control right here on the steering wheel. I don't understand why most modern cars don't come with this feature anymore, but it is really nice to have and kind of adds to just the comfy luxury experience. The fact that if you want to change the temperature, you don't have to remove your hands from the steering wheel. Moving on to the center stack, obviously this is not the factory radio, but it would have just had some nice big buttons and looked kind of similar to what you have going on in here, but you do have a center mounted clock as well as a very simple automatic climate control where you can adjust the fan speed lower and higher, as well as your standard climate controls. And then for your cup holders, you just pull this guy out, and you got 2 that are actually kind of small, to be honest with you, cup holders, and of course your ashtray. Now, one of the most notable features for bumping up to the luxury version of the Grand Marquis versus your standard one is you go from the standard analog gauges to this digital instrument cluster, which is actually really nice to have. It shows, a few things here that you can select and go different, and it beeps at you every time to show your trip. You've got your average fuel economy, which isn't great because it's got a V8, and your distance to empty, as well as your average speed. And then you have a digital speedometer as well, which is quite nice to have, especially when setting the cruise control, because you can be very specific about where you want to set your cruise. These are a really good value out there, and a lot of them are like this. This is kind of, I think an old fleet or livery vehicle, because you can tell it's got a hole on the roof, which is kind of covered by this little rubber bit, and then it's actually got a 3-pronged household outlet down in the passenger footwell. And I'm kind of assuming that this was maybe like a detective's car. You think most of the police are driving around the Ford Crown Vics, and the detectives get upgraded to the Mercury Grand Marquis. So they get something a little softer, a little nicer, but still kind of the same basic structure of car. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice drive, honestly. I like it. So I really do think that these are one of the best values out on the used car market right now, because I bought this thing for $3,000. Sure, it doesn't look great cosmetically, but it only has a little over 130,000 miles on it, and you can find these even in really nice shape for less than $5,000 all day. Well, guys, thanks for watching. This has been Brendan and Alex behind the camera, and as always, check out alltfl.com for everything automotive. Take care, guys.